We don't do what we teach students to do. We ask youth to tell us what they want to be. We ask them to map career paths, to choose occupations. Yet, how many of you are doing what you thought you'd be doing at 17? I posed this question recently to about 50 school administrators, and not one hand went up. In any group I've worked with, police, accountants, healthcare workers, anybody, it's never more than 10%. It's a little strange then that we expect high school students to do something that almost nobody has actually done. What are we really preparing kids for when we think we're helping them with their career development? Occupational choice is not the aim. At 17, I was determined to be a high school physics teacher. And to that end, I enrolled in a B.Ed, majoring in physics. I was crushed to discover I had to take psychology courses. To my surprise, I found psychology utterly fascinating, whether learning about geese imprinting on toilet floats or how the halo effect altered students' grades. Each course I took was compelling and important. There wasn't a dud in the mix. How could I know I loved psychology until I met it? Now I'm in a conundrum. Do I still become a teacher, or do I pursue this newfound interest and become a psychologist? My first path, my original path, tidally leads to a Bachelor of Education with a clear line of sight regarding work opportunities. I will teach in a high school. I can envision my future classroom and the students within it even before I've graduated. The other path is less certain. It's less visible, less secure. What would happen if I pursued psychology? What do psychologists do besides play tricks on geese and students and then provide them with intensive therapy? These two choices gnawed away at my 19-year-old-ish, identity-forming, existentially uncertain self. The anxiety was eating away at me. Decisions needed to be made about courses, majors, programs, and how to answer the question posed by aunts, uncles, and neighbors. What are you going to do after university? My very identity was at stake. This was long ago when you could drive without seatbelts, smoke in a university classroom, and never lock your doors. One of the psychology courses I was taking at the time included being counseled by the professor, which would never be allowed now. One day I voiced my deepest anxieties about my identity and my future. After listening intently to my story, or so I thought, he was leaning back in his chair, his feet up on the windowsill. He swung his feet off the sill. He turned his chair to face me squarely. He gave me a deeply caring look and said, "I hear India is a fantastic place to visit this time of year." I was furious and let him know it. I bared my soul to a man I trusted, and here he is, dreaming about India. He calmly said, "Dave, you've worked yourself up over a decision that does not need to be made. Further, you've created knots in your stomach by reducing life's choices to two alternatives." I just thought I'd throw a third in the mix. You have thousands of options. Eventually, I realized I had framed my choices in a way that was entirely unhelpful. I couldn't be a teacher or a psychologist at that time. I wasn't qualified for either position. If I had to label myself, I could be a student, traveler, unemployed, or a vending technician, which I was on weekends. And if I remained a student, all I could choose was to attend classes, not attend classes, take good notes, drift off in class, study, don't study, get a good sleep, stay up late. This is when I began to learn a truism. To quote my mentor, Barry Day, every decision is a career decision. Life requires very, very few big decisions. Who we marry or live with, having a child, investing in a home, choosing treatment or no treatment for cancer, these are pretty big. Most other seemingly big decisions, like the kind of work we do, are actually an accumulation of thousands of other decisions. Take something simple, like a student, Susan, deciding to work part-time in a restaurant. When does Susan's decision really start to look like a relevant decision? Is it when Susan tells you she's made a decision? Gets an application form from the restaurant? Fills out the application form carefully? Books an interview time? Is this when the decision is made? Or is it not until she attends the interview, accepts a position offered to her, shows up in white shirt and black pants on the first day, returns the second day, the third day? If most decisions are little decisions, your life, my life, and students' lives are formed by a myriad of little decisions. Say that the life you want to live includes being healthy. You can't choose to be healthy, really. You can decide to exercise today or not, to eat kale salad rather than cherry pie at lunch, to get up and move rather than sit. If most decisions are little decisions, what's with all of us asking kids, what are you going to be when you grow up? This question is a shortcut to genuine questions we have, such as, what really excites you? What kind of life are you aspiring to? The problem with the what do you want to be question is it's unanswerable. Here's why. The what do you want to be question carries 4 false assumptions. First, that only one occupational choice will be made, that the first choice is the last choice. Second, that the student knows the range of options. There are well over 40,000 occupations, and likely 10,000 won't exist by the time the student graduates, and 10,000 new ones will have emerged. Third, the youth has had the opportunity to think through their hopes, dreams, strengths, skills, values, and interests, and that they've done so in comparison to the range of work options within their conceptual field of vision. Fourth, that a decision about the future can be made. A kid can't choose to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, or deep-sea underwater welding specialist recruiter. This misguided question has found its way into the core, the inner sanctum of career education. We expect an answer, typically by grade 11, to a question we know is unanswerable. We can't do what we teach kids to do, and they can't do it either. This paraphrase quote by John Crumboltz, a living legend in counseling, illustrates the problem. Asking students to choose an occupation that they have never tried out is like asking them to name their future spouse before allowing them to date. As educators, we check the box of career planning as if it's achieved through occupational choice, and they are not synonymous. Career development is about much, much more than occupational choice. Career development is about putting together all the roles we want to play: learner, worker, spouse, parent, citizen, volunteer, in such a way that we move toward the life we want to live. In short, the phrase, moving toward the life we want to live, encapsulates the essence of intentional career development. Dale Gullickson is an educator whose work in career development has changed the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of students. The student who hated school, who wanted to drop out, became the passionate learner after working with Dale. Dale gets that career development is about shaping the desired life, all of one's life, including work. I was leading a study on career education. I went to Dale and I asked, how does career development best fit into education? He paused briefly and replied, Dave, you're asking the wrong question. The better question is, how does education fit in to career development? So I ask you, how does education serve students' abilities to live the lives they desire? It's hard to see you, but put your hand up if your school helps students understand themselves more fully. Okay. Develop interests, skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Okay. Connect with the world and explore that world. Create the kind of world they want to live in. That's career development, folks. And you educators in the audience will say, well, we're doing a lot of this already, and you absolutely are. We're all doing pieces of career development. The problem is, but by doing these pieces on the side, rather than as the central purpose of education, we're missing an enormous opportunity to boost school relevance, spur student engagement, dampen counterproductive behavior, and, of course, advance students' ability to create and choose the lives they want to live. When learning is personal, it sticks. Intentional career development is always personal. I had a professor who was the smartest and most knowledgeable person I've ever met. He read deeply in a wide range of disciplines, in a variety of languages, and he seemed to know absolutely everything. I asked if he had photographic memory. He replied with a question, what are you really interested in, like a hobby? I said, auto repair. He said, oh, what's the spark plug gap of a 72 Chrysler with a V8? 35 thousandths of an inch. He asked, did you have to memorize that? I said, no, I just remember. Right, you remember because you're deeply interested. I just happen to be deeply interested in everything humans have ever done or thought of doing. So I remember almost everything. I'm not equating rote learning with memory, but surely it's an indicator when I cannot keep myself from learning, when learning has a hold on me. I taught a workshop to hundreds of educators across several provinces on infusing career development into day-to-day schooling. As with ventures of this kind, some educators really wanted to be in the workshop, and some were sent. One such sent and very experienced teacher made it clear to me at the start of the workshop that she was an academic teacher, and her aim was to provide a solid base for kids' ultimate entrance into university. To her credit, she participated fully in the 3-day workshop, and at the end said it wasn't nearly as bad as she thought it was going to be. Quite by accident, I bumped into her a couple of years later and asked if she'd had a chance to incorporate any of the workshop's ideas in her academic classes. She said, well, yes, I did. And the difference in student interest and enthusiasm was so remarkable that I now teach only applied versions of those classes. It is such a joy to be in the presence of people who can't help but soak up learning. I'm just a guide for them. To close, every decision is a career decision. In the words of Commander Chris Hadfield, decide in your heart of hearts what really excites and challenges you, and start moving your life in that direction. Every decision you make, from what you eat to what you do with your time tonight, turns you into who you are tomorrow and the day after that. Look at who you want to be and start sculpting yourself into that person. You may not get exactly where you thought you'd be, but you will be doing things that suit you in a profession you believe in. Don't let life randomly kick you into the adult you don't want to become. I don't want to be the educator who randomly kicks children into adults they don't want to become. I want the joy of being in the presence of people who can't help but soak up learning. Thank you.